things that you may experience for the first time are not always happy first. You know what I'm saying? And some of those firsts can be very devastating firsts. So, you know, it was very hard. And so last year, by me, you know, being in that place where I was, the depression that I already was experiencing, because since being in ministry, everything about my entire life is different. You understand what I'm saying? Even my, you know, even my physical man, everything has changed. You know, I felt like I went in as a young, beautiful woman, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just being honest, you know, just beautiful on the outside and on the inside. And then there are things that my body got damaged. You understand what I'm saying? Sickness took over my body. Stress took over my body, and my body got real sick. You understand what I'm saying? And so in that, with my body getting real sick, you know, I had to live with, you know, something that I would have never had imagined. I'm reminded of that all day, every day. You know, so what people see is not what I see. You know what I'm saying? And the damage that it has done to me physically, emotionally, and mentally. You know, so it's a lot.
Yeah. Man, and a lot of pastors struggle with depression.
You know,
and I think people don't realize, or even, you know, can imagine that every trauma that their member goes through, the pastor goes through it with them.
Right.
On top of their personal trauma.
Absolutely.
You know, so once your family, so meaning if one of your church members has a death in their family, you know, you walk that process with them.
Right.
But eventually that family heals, and you know, time and through love and prayer. But you go on to the next family.
Right.
And who has a sick child.
Right.
So literally, you know, that, you know, we sometimes go from trauma to trauma. Right.
Without ever getting a break.
With no break.
With no break. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's my challenge with people who've never pastored, having an opinion on how someone should pastor.
Absolutely. And people don't realize that pastors go through dark thoughts and uncontrollable emotions as well. You know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, David was in that place. We could see that in Psalms 13. The prophet Elijah was in that place after a victory. He was so overwhelmed because he was hungry and he was tired, right? But he didn't even realize that his emotions were so out of control that what he felt, he told God that he would rather die. You understand what I'm saying? And, you know, but all he needed was rest and something to eat. And so, and something just that simple that can take a person all the way to the thoughts, right? Those are dark thoughts that people don't even understand that leaders have. We know that leaders have dark thoughts because of the leaders we've seen over the years more than ever who have committed suicide. That is as a result of dark thoughts and uncontrollable emotions. You understand what I'm saying? And so those, you know, because a lot of times when pastors and leaders are going through that, there's no one for them to talk to. You understand what I'm saying? And when they kind of show themselves, or the human part of themselves, or the emotional part of themselves, sometimes that leaves them very vulnerable, you know what I'm saying, to a lack of honor and a lack of respect. And so a lot of leaders don't open up and they don't share, you know, but there are a lot of leaders that go through a lot of dark thoughts and uncontrollable, you know, emotions where they feel like that, or they sense that God is no longer with them. You understand what I'm saying? That God is no longer blessing them, because, you know, some things be in us at a standstill. And then what pastors do, they take the blame. You know, they try to examine and research, like, what is it that I'm doing, or what is it that I'm not doing? You understand what I'm saying? That, you know, nothing is happening. So a lot of times we begin to ruminate in our failures, you know what I'm saying? And then we begin to get emotional, and we get in an emotional funk as well. You know what I'm saying? And people don't understand that, you know, and so, you know, and sometimes, Pastor Clay, and this is why I wanted to share this, right? Is because there are times that we get into an emotional funk, right? And it's hard to get back on, you know, a level course. It is very hard to get back on course. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, it's very hard. I just want to say this, right? Because, you know, we begin to review things that have been successful in the past. And then we look at all of what's not going right in the present. You know what I'm saying? And so because of that, right, you know, we get swept away with our emotions with that. And it can take us to a very, you know, dark place. It's a book called Spiritual Depression, and it's written by a man named Martin Lloyd-Jones. And in that book, he says that the causes of spiritual depression is temperament. And he said that knowing that you are temperamentally inclined to depression may not cure the depression, but it is an important factor to weigh when you are trying to evaluate your condition and wonder, you know, what is happening with you. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, and that is something I want to use Charles Spurgeon for an example. So many of us know Charles Spurgeon. He was one of the greatest evangelical leaders of the last century, right? But what happened with him, he suffered from bouts of depression, severe bouts of depression. How many of his quotes and writings do we study from and even use as, you know, quotes or points in our messages, or how many of his books that we read? But this man, Charles Spurgeon, he has severe bouts of depression. And the reason why I'm pointing him out, because I can relate to him in such a way, because and the reason why he suffered from bouts of depression was that the main reason was he suffered from gout, right? And because of the gout, it was marked by this painful inflammation of the joints, right? And an excess of uric acid in his blood. And so those things, they drained Charles Spurgeon's energy. They left him very fatigued and weary. And when I saw that, I said, wow, I know that's where my bouts of depression come from, because I deal with a disease that attacks my body, right? And it attacks my joints. My joints swell up. That's why I'm in pain every single day, because of the inflammation that is in my body, which has to be controlled by medications, right? And so, you know, that excess, and then certain things that I eat or drink or whatever, it builds up that acid also in me as well. And so, you know, when you get up and your body is in that much pain, you are exhausted from doing nothing. You're just exhausted from being in pain, and you wake up exhausted. You understand what I'm saying? Because of the pain. And unless you have something that controls the pain, it takes that weight. It's hard to explain, because the pain is just like this heavy weight, and you can't get up and do nothing. You know what I'm saying? And so unless that weight is lifted, you know, I can't function during the day.
Yeah.
So the only way that I can function is that I have to take something for the pain, which is another thing that puts me in depression, because I am a person, I do not like taking any kind of medication at all. That has always been my motto. That has always been my makeup. You understand what I'm saying? That has always been me. So, I'm not a medicine person, and to have to get through the day. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With the assistance of some pain medication is not good for me. And it messes with me mentally and emotionally. And that was one of the things. See, people don't understand. Great people go through great trauma. You understand what I'm saying? They go through many great traumas. And Charles Spurgeon, his depression for the most part was brought on by his illness. And, I know that there are moments I feel sorry for myself. There are moments where I feel like I'm not.
As a pastor.
Yeah, as a pastor, I'm not good enough for this. Maybe I should let somebody else be the pastor, because I don't think that I'm effective in this way anymore. I don't think that, I matter in this, it's so much that you go through, and I go through this every day. You understand what I'm saying? Like every day, going through that, and it will drain you. It will drain your energies. It will drain you. And so not only will you be physically tired, you'll be mentally fatigued as well.
Yeah.
And so,
I think people understand how much emotional and mental warfare pastors go through. Like when you plan and pray for an event, and then people decide not to show up on Sunday morning, it makes you feel like you aren't enough. Maybe I'm not preaching good enough. Maybe I'm not teaching good enough. Maybe I'm not called to pastor. And people have no idea of how much pastors have to go through mentally and emotionally just to get in that pulpit and encourage the house.
Absolutely.
Many pastors deal with separation anxiety or undiagnosed separation anxiety. But like I said, either through death or separation, there are members of my church that died years ago, and I'm still
dealing with
suffering from the pain of loss, of losing, members. I've had members to leave my church for whatever reason, and I'm still, I move and I function, but I still suffer through it. Talk about that, Pastor Ray, as it relates to people not showing up, people, and what that does to the pastor's heart and mentality when we program, pray, organize, put together, and people decide, not to show up.
Right. And so one thing that I want people to understand too, when that separation is a death. So when people leave you, something has died, right? That relationship has died. And so it's not just that easy to move forward without grieving. You understand what I'm saying? And what we do as leaders is we don't grieve. We try to condition ourselves to be strong and to forget about those people and, focus on what we're doing. And then you have other people saying, you got to let that go and you got to do it. But when something or someone dies, especially something or someone that you love, it's just not that easy. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we don't, when we think that just, people come and people go. But there are some people that have been in our lives in ministry that we value. You understand what I'm saying? And when they separate themselves, when people get a divorce, that is a death. You understand what I'm saying? And so when these people part their ways, their relationship has died. That was what happened in the Garden of Eden. In the beginning, there was this beautiful relationship between man and God, right? And what was the first thing that happened when God said, if you eat up this fruit, you shall surely die. It wasn't that they died physically, the relationship that it brought death. It brought death to the relationship that